Rich here. Thanks for tuning in again. This video is going to be basically an update to the original review video I posted. I've got about 500 miles on the bike now, and I wanted to take the opportunity to update some of the things that I had initially said about the bike in that first review. So again, this is not going to be a full review. If you've not seen my original review video for this bike, I'll make sure that's linked down below. Please check that out first. This is just going to be, basically an update, to some things that I said now that I've got a lot more seat time on the bike. And I've also done a bunch of work on the bike as well. I've got handguards on here. There's a GPS mount that I designed and built. I've got the seat concepts, comfort seat on, a battery tender hookup, a tail tidy. I've got a tail bag on here, folding enduro mirror. And in fact, I actually put up a site with links to all that stuff, as well as a bunch of stuff out of the service manual, or not service manual, but the owner's manual for this bike as well. And here's what that site looks like. I'll link that as well. There's PDFs of a lot of the common service stuff on here, so if you do own one of these bikes, or if you're planning on picking one up, definitely bookmark this. It's nice not to have to actually drag your owner's manual out into the garage all the time. But let's get into it. So, a couple of things that I was a little bit harsh on in the first video. Big one was really the throttle, and sort of the on-off throttle response. And there's a number of other reviews that have come out, since I posted, kind of saying the same thing, that the on-off throttle response is just, it's weird. And it still is, but now that I've had some more time on the bike and I've made a couple adjustments, it's not nearly as bad as it was. And I think it's a combination of a couple of different things. I noticed that I had a fair amount of slack in my throttle cable after putting a couple hundred miles on the bike. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't check it when I first got the bike from the dealer. I am assuming that they had it tuned in, but I mean, that could be a big assumption as well. Mine definitely had some stretch in it, or was not adjusted properly from the dealer. So I took probably about 2, maybe even 3 millimeters of play out of my throttle. I still have some play in there. I know you don't want to be careful. You want to be careful not to get those too tight. Get it down to where you think it should be. Start the bike, turn the wheel from side to side, make sure that you're not pulling on that throttle cable at all, and you still have at least some play in there. I think the manual says, I don't know, maybe 2.5 millimeters. I have mine a little bit less, but I made sure that I have at least like 1.5 millimeters, even where the cable is the tightest. So even in the position where the bar tightens up that cable the most. So that made a big difference. The other thing is, I also have a little bit of slack in my chain as well, and I have not adjusted that yet, and that's another thing that may have loosened up over time, or may just not have been dead right from the dealer in the first place. But I also think my chain is a little bit looser than it needs to be. So, by the way, beautiful fall day here. This was about a week ago that I shot this. We finally had some warmer weather, and I'm looking for a trail here, and you can see that's not going too well. This particular road that I'm on, I admittedly I have not been out here for a long time. This is out closer to where I used to live before I moved, and a lot of these gates on this trail used to be, or on this road here, used to be open. Not all of them, but typically you'd find 2 or 3 open, and you could get up a good ways into these woods, and it was not posted. I think this property is owned by the city of Bethlehem, even though it's nowhere near Bethlehem. But they have there's a big reservoir out here. So here I am checking another one, and about to strike out again. This kind of wound up being a bit of a theme of the day here, but I carried on and just continued to try and find some place where I could get this bike off the street into the woods. But I tell you what, I mean, the colors were just beautiful. It was, I think, maybe 50-55 degrees out on this particular day, which is pretty warm for the Northeast for this time of year. But anyway, back to the bike. The other thing is, just having put more miles on the motor, I think the motor has broken in a good bit, and it's so much smoother. I mean, so much smoother. I don't want to say I complained, but I did mention that I had sort of some vibes through the bars and on the pegs a little bit in the first review. That's pretty much all gone. I think the parts just needed to sort of wear in on the motor. This bike is almost as smooth as my WR now, and that's saying a lot because I mean the WRs are just, they're so smooth across the whole RPM range. The only time I can feel any vibes at all on this bike now is like if I'm just holding a gear for a really long time and not really accelerating more, but just kind of holding that high rev in, you know, like a low gear, like maybe second or third, and I'm holding up at the top of the rev range. I can feel, you know, still another try there, struck out again. Boy, this is beautiful, beautiful area out here. And little, oh, here's another one. Nope. This little interesting side note, this road used to be called Reservoir Road, and I believe it's called Hatchery Road now. A buddy of mine told me that after, I guess sometime after 9/11, all of the roads in the country that were related to reservoirs or had reservoir in their name were renamed to keep terrorists away. Kind of a scary thing, but I guess it makes sense. But I still call this Reservoir Road. I grew up out in this area, and it's always going to be quote unquote Reservoir Road to me. But gorgeous, gorgeous area through here. This is just north of, this is a couple miles north of Jim Thorpe, and I guess what you'd call maybe the southern part of the Poconos. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But it was a beautiful day to be out, and the bike was just running great. The more time I spend on this bike, the more addicting the power is. And one of the probably the most meaningful mods I've made to this bike is swapping out the seat. Oh, another nope. The seat that I'd gotten from my WR250R was the Seat Concepts low comfort seat, and I really liked that seat, but I actually always kind of wished I'd gotten just a regular height seat. So when it came time to order for this bike, nope. About here, nope again. So when it came time to order for this bike, I ordered just the regular height seat, but still the comfort seat. The comfort seat, it's wider in the back, but still the stock width in the front. So you get that comfort when you slide back on the seat a little bit, but you still have the same control up in the front. I can't recommend their seats enough. Super, super happy with the seat comfort seat. And it's just made a huge difference in longer rides on this bike. And nope again. It's got to be some trail on this off this road open. There's got to be. I'll just keep riding around. I'll find one. I mean, right? They can't all be gated. I mean, somebody's got to be back there looking at something somewhere. But it's not really how it went. And yeah, nope. Maybe this one. Nope. Oh, what about this guy? This gate's always open here. Come on! So yeah, by now, shockingly, I needed gas. I mean, because the bike only has a 2-gallon tank, which I'm still not happy about. I really feel like a 2.5-gallon tank should have been the bare minimum on this bike, not 2 gallons. And 3 gallons or even 3.5 gallons would be ideal. IMS does have a tank out yet. I may pick that up, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Honda themselves will even offer something. So here I am getting gas, and somehow, guys, would you believe it? I didn't get gas in my eyes.
It just went straight into Ewan's eyes.
Yeah, miraculous. I know. If by chance anybody from IMS is tuned in, and you guys are looking for any additional testers for that new 3-gallon tank you've got out for this bike, I would love to check it out. I think 3 gallons is pretty much right on the money for the average rider for this bike. I know folks that are looking to quote-unquote adventurize this bike might be looking for a bigger tank, but I think 3 gallons is pretty much right on the money for this bike and the average rider. I got to tell you, having the GPS on this bike is so nice. I had the same GPS on my WR250R, and really you get spoiled by having a GPS on the bike. At least for me, I find I have a lot more comfort in just exploring, places or getting into places where everything starts to look the same after a while. And it's nice to know that when it's time to get out of the woods or time to start making your way home, you can just plug in a destination, or you can backtrack and get out of there. So kind of thought I'd swing by my buddy David's house here, and my friend Tom was I know was there as well doing some sheetrock work, and thought maybe one of them would have some idea of where I could actually find some place to get off the street and do a little riding today. So we proceeded to catch up a bit and have a very serious conversation about maybe where I could find some riding out here.
Yep. Uh-huh. Oh. Yep. Oh. Nope. Oh. Yep. Uh-huh.
Ah, finally, something that's not paved. So they told me that if I just went out to the very end of this road that it kind of turned into a trail, and that if I kind of follow along through here, eventually there is a way to get underneath the highway that is ahead of me through the trees here. And I've never been out here, so I'm just kind of tractoring through, trying to figure out where the trail goes. Everything looks the same with all these leaves on the ground. But I did eventually, as I make my way up here, see that the trail kind of follows down through a cut here in the stream, the bank coming up. And much like the first video, it's funny, nothing ever looks as steep or as rough on video as it is in real life. This is really short here, but it's actually quite steep as it cuts down through here. But the balance on this bike is so nice, and just bounce back up here on the other side. And they did warn me that that it might be wet out here, given all the rain that we've had lately. And I really did not want to get the bike completely caked in mud like I did in the video that I used for my first review. I do like to keep my stuff, well maintained and pretty clean, and it probably took me no joke like 2 hours to get the mud out of the drivetrain and everything on the bike last time. This was really cool going through here. I've never been through here, and this is like I guess a cut for the stream to go underneath the highway here, and then you actually end up in the stream on the other side, and it's mostly shallow. It got a little deep there towards the end, right before you come back up out. And oh man, it's already looking wet. So I'm just trying to take it super easy and thinking, all right, well, it's dry for the most part. When I get to these wet sections, if I just carefully tractor through on the sides or tractor through the middle of them where I need to, I can probably keep from getting myself completely caked in mud like last time. So that's why I'm going so slow through here. I'm certainly not a great rider, but I'm more than capable of shooting through these sections a lot quicker. I'm just, at this point, I'm still convinced I'm going to come out of these woods clean and not get covered in mud. Man, I got to tell you that the more time I spend on this bike, the more balanced I feel on it. It's just, God, it's addicting to just get on the throttle and in second and third gear on these trails and just run it up and bang the next gear. It's the power range is it's so nice, and the delivery of it is so smooth. It's a very satisfying bike to ride on both. Well, actually, I mean, really on the street, on a fast, sort of double track trail like this, or the single track stuff. I don't know how Honda did it. I mean, I loved the DRZ when I had it on the street, hated it in the woods. The WR seemed like a pretty good compromise between, trail riding and street, but it wasn't great at either one. I mean, this bike is just, it's honestly great at all three. If they had somehow managed to figure out a way to have a much longer maintenance interval on this bike as well, it would truly be like the only bike to own, in my opinion, in this class. I think the size of the gas tank and still the the service interval, which is not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. But those are the two things that are really holding this bike back from, I think, just selling faster than Honda can even produce it. So I had tried to go down that section to the right over there, and it turned into a sponge. So I thought, oh, maybe it's better on this side. I'm just kind of trying to look for the dry spots. You see this is like a double track over here. But then even this side starts to turn into a sponge, and I probably should have turned around at this point and either gone back the way I came in or tried to see if I could find an offshoot. But I thought, well, if I just stay on the sides and I tractor through these wet spots, maybe I'll get rewarded with some additional fast sections, or some fun single track or whatever. So this actually here was perfectly fine. This was not soft on the bottom. That was actually just sandy on the bottom, but not mud. So it gave me some confidence that I could probably make my way up through here. So I kept at it, and I just kept my pace nice and slow and sort of tractored through these. And at most, I think maybe that one was maybe 8 inches deep, and still not too soft. So I kept going. And same thing here. It's starting to get a little bit softer, but I'm still able to keep the bike moving forward just fine. But you can see it's pretty much wet across this whole section. We have had so much rain this year, and the water table is just so high in these areas. And yeah, I mean, look at that. It's just soaking wet, and even the ground that I'm standing on, it looks dry. It's spongy here too. I really should have turned around at this point, because from this point forward, I don't know how far you can see up the trail there. It is just a swamp with a couple of high spots. And as soon as I got into here, the back started to dig in, the front started to dig in, and I just really wasn't going anywhere. I mean, almost immediately the rear sunk down to the point where the swing arm was just about sitting on the mud, and I'm trying to kind of shove it through here, thinking if I break that rear loose, maybe I can power through this next spot up there. But the only thing I really managed to do was just dig the front end of the bike in even deeper. So done. All right, well, I'm gonna hop off and get another look at this. I did actually pop it forward a little bit there, but the rear just kind of dug its way right back in. And by now I'm realizing, yeah, I'm realizing I'm not getting out of here without getting dirty. You can see the rear of the bike is just dug in there. It's just super deep. And looking ahead at that water hole in front of me, that spot was actually deep enough that I almost got my feet wet. I'm wearing I wear City Adventure boots that are waterproof up to probably about 10 inches, and that next water hole there was probably right at about the 10-inch mark, but it did make it through with still with dry feet. So at this point, I'm determined to not get stopped again. So I'm kind of going at this quite a bit heavier. At this point, the bike's already dirty, so why not? And it's fun to rip up through the mud. It's just, if you'd like to keep your bike clean, man, it's a pain to clean it up afterwards. But yeah, so I'm tearing up through here, and it did start to dry up through this section a bit, and I mean, you could do 20-30 through this area, no problem. But you'd still come across some wet sections, and I think there's a section coming up here, yeah, where it's just soaked all the way across again. But I just stayed on the throttle, and I continue to be amazed by these stock tires. For being a compromised tire, I was surprised how much traction I was getting through the mud, and like right here, I mean, that's spongy in the center. I managed to hold that center line up that section without the bike, without either the front or the rear slipping. And I can see the telephone pole up there. I can see that that's a hard packed trail, and man, I really want to get to that trail. And it looks like it's drying up here towards the end, but it's just playing tricks on me. Even over here on the right, in this bush, it's still soaked, and God, it's just giant sponge through here. I think I had a peg here, and I'm doing 3 miles per hour, but I'm out of it. Now it looks like I've got a nice hard pack trail here, so let's get off and see how much damage we've caused. Oh yeah, it's covered, and that thing is, God, it's just a swamp, and the bike is covered. I know I'm sounding like a big baby here, but when I set out, I told myself it wasn't getting covered, and I am completely covered in mud. Pants, my jacket that I'm wearing, everything's just covered in mud. So it happens. It seemed to happen quite a bit this year with the crazy amount of rain that we've had in the Northeast. But I had a blast out there the day that I filmed this. Really good time. Every time I get on this bike, I have a blast. It's really reinvigorated my interest in riding. I've got a lot of different hobbies, and you know, I wasn't spending as much time on the WR as I was when I first got it. But man, this bike is just such a blast to ride. I just want to get out there all the time and put more miles on it. Unfortunately, this is probably the last ride I'll get to do on this bike this year. It's really starting to get cold, and in fact, the day I'm editing this video, it's just barely breaking above freezing. So the day, I think, after I rode, I got out and I did some log splitting and started stacking some wood for the coming winter season. We don't solely heat our house on wood, but I really do enjoy sitting in front of a fire. So I usually split about 2 cords of wood a year and burn kind of over the weekends or on some weeknights. It's nothing better than sitting in a rocking chair with a nice beer, thinking about the upcoming riding season. And I do have, if you're interested in seeing more videos, I do have a couple of older ones posted before the CRF450L video that I posted that got a lot of attention. Some friends of mine and I do a ride every year out in the Pine Barrens in Jersey, and I've got at least, I think, 2 videos posted from trips of previous years. I'll link those below as well. Check those out. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Even though I'm not going to be doing any more riding this year, I've got still a bunch of projects to finish up on the bike, and I'll be posting video updates for those. Probably the thing I'll be spending time on next is just finalizing the design work and testing the Skaggs Moto design rack that I've been working with Jared on. That's getting pretty close. I think he's working on a final design of the piece that actually mounts sort of forward on the bike for the rack. So again, subscribe. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you tuning in, and catch you next time.